I'm delighted to be joined by Merav Michaeli, a two-term Israeli lawmaker from the opposition Zionist Union Party. She's a former journalist and activist who's become increasingly influential on a spectrum of security-related issues through her activities on behalf of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. Merav, welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. It's great to be here.
Let's start with this Jewish nation-state law, which you obviously opposed. The Prime Minister is calling you and your colleagues hypocrites, that for years you've been crying Israel cannot be democratic and Jewish, and now he's provided the ability to do so.
See, you went right to the point. It's right about what the Prime Minister says. It's not, it is a horrible law, and we do oppose it. But the thing for Netanyahu is that it's yet just another tool he created to leverage his campaign that goes back to 1993, when he incited against Yitzhak Rabin by saying Netanyahu is good for the Jews and the left is good for the Arabs, and it's a zero-sum game. That's what he's been trying to reinforce now with this nation law. It's amazing to realize how mere life and legislation and things that are so profoundly dramatic are to him just a tool in his own campaign. Israel comes across once again as racist, as non-democratic, as nationalist, which it is not supposed to be. Seriously, our Declaration of Independence states that we are the nation state of the Jewish people with equality for all. And this law comes and says we are the nation state of the Jewish people, period, without equality, without democracy.
What about those 5 magic words, equality for all its citizens?
Gone, just gone, missing from this bill, missing, by the way, from our other basic laws. And you know what's interesting? Now, in the nation-state law, the word equality is missing because of the Arabs, all of the Arabs. But do you know why it's missing from the basic law of men's dignitary respect, honor, and freedom? It's missing from there because the Orthodox, the Jewish Orthodox in Israel wouldn't have equality because of women. So when we are talking about the lack of equality in Israel, we are first and foremost talking about lack of equality for women, for LGBT, and for Arabs.
Even though the Prime Minister likes to flag Israel as being so enlightened and so friendly to the LGBT community.
Israel is, but only thanks to Supreme Court rulings. This Supreme Court that Netanyahu and his partners are trying to crash and are trying to weaken because they are giving too many human rights. Now, it's amazing, once again, to see how Netanyahu will go with his domestic politics, with his campaign, as far as hurting Israel in really all the world's eyes.
And even domestically, there's a huge outcry from those minorities who serve and have given the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this country. The focus now is on the Druze, and there may or may not be some kind of a compromise, but what about the Bedouin and the Circassian who serve as well in uniform through decades? And the Israeli-Palestinian Arab community.
That is exactly the question that this bill arises. And the fact that it's legit to claim equality only through army service and only through having given blood to the state of Israel is extremely problematic. And once again, it goes back not only to Arabs, but to women. Israeli army still has not done what the Pentagon has done and the army of the US has done, and that is to open all professions and all units and to move from sorting people according to their gender to sorting people according to their abilities and their talents. This is something that we're not there yet. So it goes to show you how much the essence of equality is missing from this law, from Netanyahu's all of his policies. This is the main thing that is missing.
Right. Well, we have to follow this. I know that you've been a huge torchbearer on the issue of equality. Let's move it on to the West Bank. And is the Prime Minister, in your view, doing all that he can to discredit Abu Mazen and to sort of justify this prolonged limbo, stalemate on any type of movement forward with negotiations?
Well, he's been doing it for so long that he doesn't really need to do this anymore. I think by now both Netanyahu and Abu Mazen are entrenched so deeply that there's really, you need no further effort to prevent anything from happening. Question is, what is going to happen now between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas in Egypt? Now, from my understanding, there's a lot of progress there in the discussions. If really there is a genuine reconciliation,
towards reconciliation
between the two parts of the Palestinian people today, or Gaza and the West Bank, this can create a big difference that will force Netanyahu to either actually do something or find new ways to refrain from doing something.
And you do believe that there's significant progress, because we've also been waiting around for that Godot for many years.
I do not believe that there is progress. I hear that there is progress. Okay. I cannot, testify for myself. I haven't been in the talks, unfortunately, but I hear that there is progress there. I am one of those who hope for this kind of progress, because the situation in Gaza is so dire. And as much as I think that Israel has some responsibility to try and make it better and take actual steps to make it better and more secure for Israel by doing that, yet it's not only Israel's responsibility. One needs to acknowledge that.
There's another side. And what about the responsible adult in this whole issue? It is indeed Egypt trying and not giving up?
Yes, I think by far Sisi is the most mature adult in the area these days.
Now, with all these actions and counteractions, it doesn't take much to ignite an unwanted war on both sides. What's your view as a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and what should be done?
Listen, I heard yesterday that the Defense Minister Lieberman has announced that he's once again closing the Kerem Shalom checkpoint for fuels and gas, etc. And I was asking myself, why is he doing it? We just reached an understanding with Hamas after the last little round that there is going to be more civil activity going on in return for the quiet. Now, the quiet has been generally kept. Yes, there has been one or two balloons of fire balloons,
which and kites.
Each and every one of them is terrible. Don't get me wrong on that. But is that a reason to once again escalate the situation in Gaza? Unfortunately, I'm very much afraid that once again Lieberman, as Netanyahu, in this competition of who is harder on Arabs, is doing something that is not in the interest of Israel's security. And I really am afraid that nobody's going to be, as you said, responsible enough.
So they'll risk a war.
Yes.
Let's end on U.S.-Israel strategic cooperation, which is fortified all the time. Yet, what about that traditional bipartisan support for Israel? Has it eroded, in your view, in the age of Trump, Netanyahu?
First and foremost, you know that even
Obama.
Yeah, even Netanyahu, even in the Trump administration era, Barak Ravid, the correspondent from Channel 10, has brought an information that the government that the administration turned to Netanyahu with reservation about the nation-state law. So even this very, very strong connection between Trump and Netanyahu did not go, the nation-state law did not go unnoticed and not unreserved. Now, what you said, the bipartisan support for Israel has been eroding for a long, long, long time already. And the situation in the Democratic Party today, as far as Israel goes, is really bad for Israel. I am very worried about that. Now, I know that Netanyahu is not unaware of that, but he's not willing to do anything in order to make it better. Because what it takes is to give up some of the incitement and the devastating domestic politics that he uses constantly. Unfortunately, he's not willing to stop that.
On that troubling note, Merav Michaeli,